Welcome back, everyone, to the PCN Podcast. It is me, Cage x19, your new host, alongside my new co-host, eKsiSLe.
Hello.
Before we get into everything, we understand that the podcast hasn't been here for a while. We will say we really did enjoy the way it used to be run by the various different hosts, but its structure and its consistency wasn't where we wanted it. So we're hoping to be the opposite of that and keep that content, but keep this going as long as we can. That being said, if you guys do have any feedback, we will gladly take it and use it and try to make this as best as we can. So, getting into things right away, we do have our Super League. Towards the second half of the mid-season, we do have Madrid in first with 66, Orlando in second with 61, Benfica in third with 56, and then we got fourth with Leeds in 49, Milan fifth, 47, and Torino in 46. Now, the thing about this table is Madrid is 5 points clear with 2 games in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Is this title already sealed if you guys keep winning your games and if you win your 2 games in hand?
Well, I mean, yeah. Theoretically, yes. If you're looking at the data, if we do not lose, we will not lose the title. But do I think it means it's already wrapped up? No. There are a lot of games left. We have 12. Everybody else has 10 games. So if you're looking at it, from that perspective, even if we win 6, I think we still have a good chance. But that means that Orlando has to win or has to lose a few, and I don't think that's going to happen. So basically, we have to keep our form. If we do not, we will not win the title. I mean, I think Orlando has proven that 5 points is not enough to hold on. And and my teams in the past, season 12, have proven that no lead is safe. So, I'm not looking to collapse here toward the end, but we got to keep fighting, and it is by no means already wrapped up.
That's fair being said. We have seen a lot of upsets with your Atlanta team and Lyon fumbling the bag, so we wouldn't count it out. But speaking of your team, I mean, in your last 25 games, you have 3 losses in all competitions. In Super League, you only have 4 losses alone. I mean, what are you guys doing right? I feel like Footy Stone and GOAT, and then just their passing, dribbling, finishing has been such a key factor. Is there anything else that makes your team the way that it is right now?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think you touched on the keys there. We have a very unselfish team. I think I mentioned this on the PCN news thing, but in the interview, but they, those guys are extremely creative. They not only create space on the dribble, but space on the run. And, when you have guys who are willing to commit and do things not for just themselves, right? That's the key, is to do things that make the team better, like darting runs down the middle in the left side channel or something, and dragging a defender with so that it opens up space for Go to make the late run underneath, right? So those things, if they do not happen, it makes it difficult to find space, especially against teams who are a little bit farther back and sitting and in a lower block. But for us, I mean, we've really only struggled against the big teams, which I think that's not great. I don't want us to struggle, but I think it's important that you take care of business when you need to. And against teams like you should, we have been. So that's good. The one game I think that I mentioned at the beginning of the season that got away from us was Torino. First game of the season, rather. And, I knew that was going to be the situation when that happened. Is that first game of the season, we lost 2-0 because they came out and they countered us really quickly. I mean, first 3 minutes, I think. And it was, kudos to them for doing it, but it was a terrible, terrible run of play for us. And I think everybody knew that on the team. And immediately after I said it, I mean, you've seen the meme. Immediately after I said, look, that team is not good enough to make top half. I thought for sure they'd be in mid-table. Now, depending on how you look at mid-table, if it's right on 10, or if you were talking about 9 or 7 or 8 or whatever. I don't know. That depends. But they've had a great run of form, and we can talk about that later. But I think the key for us has been just being a team, a true team, right? Like it's easy to get caught up in, being friends, but we are actually a team, and we work really well together, and we work hard for one another.
Yeah, I mean, it shows obviously with the results you guys have. So, I mean, we'll see how this season goes on, but if you guys don't slow down anytime soon, I think that title could be yours for sure. As you're saying about Torino, they are indeed in seventh now, and so before, everyone they had their memes about beating Madrid at the beginning of the season. They had title aspirations right away. They kind of sloped off, went to ninth, 10th, but here they are in seventh. In seventh now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in their last 7 games, they have 5 wins, 1 loss, and 1 tie, with a 5-0 win against Lazio and a 4-2 win against Wolves.
Mm-hmm.
They have 12 clean sheets as a team, and they do have a few goal scorers, but Zuckerberg's their main one with 16. Do you think this is a team to contend for top six? I know you said earlier you think they're a mid-table team. In my eyes, with just based on the stats that I see, they do play, some scummy FIFA. We have to agree on that. But, if they keep being consistent, like if they put another display of the last 7 games up, they can definitely stay in that top six.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the talent. I mean, that's not the issue to me. It's how they approach the game really that I think is not sustainable. It had nothing to do with the quality on the team. Louis or as he's called now, Zuckerbot. He's a good striker. I mean, he's efficient with his finishing most of the time. He usually has a lot of goals. In any
wait, that's
league.
brother Louis?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so he's been an efficient. Striker. He's been a good striker. Definitely filling up goals for sure. He can finish, and so when you give him opportunities and he takes them, he's successful. And I have to imagine that that's the case with them. Is Torino's not a bad side. They have good players. I mean, Snowboarder's a very, very talented team of the season caliber Super League center back, or at least he was historically. And he's been great. Khan is a good goalkeeper, and I like a lot of their players. Don't get me wrong. It's more of the way that they play the game, both defensively as a unit and then in transition as an offense. I don't think that's a sustainable pathway, and maybe they've changed that since we played. I know the first game they beat us 2-0. I think we came back and beat them 3-1. I think maybe on the second go. I don't remember, but either way, we beat them on the second leg of that, and it's been interesting. But good for them for winning 5 out of 7, and only having 1 loss out of those 7. That's great. That's a great run of form, and hopefully they're able to keep it up. I've been wrong before. It'll happen again, so I'm not afraid to be wrong about Torino. But and if their manager changed the way they play, then awesome. Kudos for seeing something in what they had and making adjustments. So
yeah, for sure. We'll see how they can keep going. But on the opposite end, a team that's been out of form is everyone's beloved Wolves, led by Portuguese Prince. They're currently sitting in 16th, which I don't think anyone expected. I personally had them definitely as like a top 8, possibly top 6 contending side with the guys they have. In their last 8 games, they only have 2 wins and 6 losses. One of their main problems is that they really only have one source of goals when you're looking at it. Hinckley has 16, and I think their next best had like 6 or 8. Mm-hmm. What do you think Prince can do to like turn this team around in the time that he has? I mean, the team is full of like good and experienced players in the league. Gato Bravo and Mokro from Juventus in those days, mm-hmm. and Bati, who was formerly known as SF Batistuta, who was a team of the year outside mid. So where do you see these guys turning this around?
Well, I mean, that is tough. 6 losses out of 8, with the other 2 being wins. That's difficult to adjust from. I mean, I know having just played them in a Royal Cup, we went up 4-0 in the first leg. Now, I don't remember what setup they had in the first game. To be honest, I didn't play that game, so I can't remember. But in the second one, I made note that they were running in a 4-4-2 flat. Now, I don't know if that's a change or an alteration from the previous game, like I said, or what they've been running all season, because I haven't been paying that close attention to them, I must admit. But they were much better the second game. I mean, they beat us 3-2. Now, granted, we were up 4-0, second leg of the cup, late game night, whatever. Make all the excuses you want, but they flat out outplayed us for about 45 minutes. And we only got the second goal. We lost 3-2, and we only got the second goal literally in the 90th minute. So, I think their talent, they're underperforming for sure. So that tells me there's something going on, either internally on the team, or it's something to do with the way they're being set up tactically. Maybe people aren't in the right positions, or maybe they're not playing the way they typically would, or maybe it's a machinery of players that just don't fit together, right? Like Gato Bravo is an incredible outside mid. He's also been a great center back, great center mid. He plays a lot of positions. Mokro, same thing, great winger. Really an attacking-minded player who dribbles, who's very good at breaking teams down on the dribble, who really his only deficiency in the game is his passing, and it's really not even that bad. His deficiency there is just being able to, I think, pick the right pass, and oftentimes you could blame it on the game or what have you. So outside mid, you don't look at him having above 85 to 90% passing. You're looking above 78, 79-ish, and that's where he hovers. So in the 80s or low 80s, high 70s, something like that. But for those players to be on that team and to have Hinckley, who actually is very good at 21 in scoring and proved that last season, I think, to see them struggling, that's weird. But to me, it screams of maybe a stylistic problem. Body is a kind of guy, just looking at those players that you named, Body is a guy that likes the ball quickly, right? So not necessarily route one. He's not looking for a dump over the top, although he does like a good LBY. He's British. I think he's Scottish, sorry. British, Britain, whatever. But anyway, he does appreciate a more direct approach, whereas you look at Gatto and you look at Mokro, and they both really are not, they're not direct players. They are very indirect, slow moving, methodical, dribble, control the game type players. So that minimizes the touches for Body. That might lead to frustration. I don't want to get into conjecture as to what the actual issue is, but I think stylistically there might be a problem there. And that's what I would look to do is to change that. And maybe that's what Prince is doing by going to the 4-4-2.
Yeah, I mean, we can only hope that those guys can fix it, because they got a lot of players who have been in the league who are really good. Sometimes it's just a look at the draw. You just have an off season. I'm pretty sure it's happened to everyone. So
yeah, you didn't even mention Vicious. You didn't even mention Vicious. He's another guy. Yeah, Vicious, and Nico's at DM. He's been around a long time. So there is no reason this team should be underperforming the way that they are, in my opinion. I just, you have that kind of talent. To me, that makes no sense. I feel like Prince is a good manager, and I feel like any good manager can get that team to top half, and I think he will. I think it's a matter of getting that team to work as a unit and figure out the stylistic changes, and maybe one or two pieces need to be figured out. But I think he can do it.
Yeah, I definitely think he can bring him back. Talking about getting into the top six, we do have Leeds, who's back in there. They struggled in the first half of the season. The first 14 games, this was without their key player Andressi, by the way. They had, in the 14 games, they had 5 wins, 4 draws, and 5 losses, which by their standards, I think we all know is nowhere near up to par. Then, second half of the season, this is with Andressi in their last 14 games, they have 8 wins, 3 draws, and 3 losses. Mm-hmm. Granted, he's only played 9. He's contributed to 5 goals, and he has 16 key passes. Do you think they can go for top 4 now with him back in? I think they could. Him coming in just adds another element of attack, plus Evo. Their defense is already solid with Pep and Ortiz. They got Jack and Nat. I mean, where do you see them finishing?
So, I think top 4 is fine for them. With that talent, they should be top 2, honestly. The difficulty is obviously they started slow. I think you look at the last 14 games and you see those 3 losses, and that's an aberration, I think. Seeing that team lose 3 games out of 14 may not seem like a lot, but that team, for me, they're dropping points. And they've historically dropped points, specifically, later in the season. So I don't know. I don't know. Typically by now they've already lost interest. If they're not first, then they lose interest and drop out. So we'll see what happens. I hope that's not the case because they're all very, very good players. I mean, Pep is one of the best, if not the best, center back right now in the league, and he plays anchor. And then you have Andressi, who's arguably one of the better cams. He would argue that he's the best cam in the league. I know this because we actually did argue about this. But and he is a great player. There's no doubt about it. But I think they can turn it around and turn it around. I mean, obviously they have turned it around, but I mean, keep going forward and get top four. I think that's not out of the realm.
Yeah, as we expect them to. I think we all do. One more thing that I feel like is something we should cover is LA Galaxy. Now, beforehand, I think about 2 seasons back, this was a top 4 Super League team. And I don't believe this team has changed too much besides the fact of 1 or 2 players. But in this season, they have 11 draws.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
And in their last, out of their 11 draws, 6 of them are 0-0. So in my opinion, I think it's just the lack of goals finding the way to win.
Mm-hmm.
They have 11 wins and 4 losses without those 11 draws, and I feel like if those 11 draws could have gone differently into like maybe 75% of them being wins, this team could very well be a top 4 team still. What do you think they can start doing to turn around and get some more goals? Because I personally, the only thing I've seen Capo do so far is take Hayoshi, put him with the striker, and he has scored 8 goals and like 2 assists in 10 games.
Mm-hmm.
So it hasn't been bad, but I feel like they need to be better if they want to push for a top 4 spot.
Yeah, I mean, as far as what they can do, you have to score. I think Orlando learned that, right? The hard way this season. I think the only reason they're in second is because they had a rough bit of form, not scoring the goal. And right here, I think that's in the same boat. I mean, Galaxy have always been that kind of team that does sit back a little bit more, similar to how Torino play, but they're a little less fresh to the league, I think. So they have a few veteran presences there on Galaxy who do hold the ball a bit, but they do play a more fast-paced style. They want to get in behind, smaller striker, smaller cams, or cam, and to me, great teams turn draws into wins. To me, right? And historically, they're a team that gets a fair amount of draws. And I'm not saying they're a bad team. I just think it's indicative of the fact that they're not scoring. And they need that presence who's going to be able to put them over the top. And in truth, I don't want to make this about Real Madrid, but that's exactly why I went and got Stone. Stone and I we've been friends for, not great friends, but acquaintances, whatever, for a few seasons now. But my thing was, bringing him into the team would be a disruptive force because he is a very outward and overt personality. He likes to communicate on game day and he likes to talk about things, but he's also a competitor. And so for me, bringing him in was exactly what we needed to get over that hump. And that's why, in my opinion, we have not drawn a game yet.
Yeah.
So I think they need goal scorers. I think you nailed it.
Yeah. So just once they bring in more, I mean, maybe they can change their form and start getting some wins. I think that would be key for them, but
I feel stupid like saying, they need more goals to score because obviously everybody knows that.
Of the fact, though.
Yeah, I know, but but that kind of analysis gets you kind of John Madden-esque, but the idea here is that, yes, it's not real analysis, but they need goals. And if you're not scoring, you're not going to win. That's simple, but some managers have difficulty, I think, in pulling the trigger on guys that they appreciate and guys that they like. And it's not always easy, but sometimes you need to make that change in order for the betterment of the team.
The team, yeah, for sure. And I know Capo, I mean, I feel like he definitely knows that team's not scoring goals. So maybe he can change some tactics around. Like you said, bring in a few more guys to score goals. I think he can do it for sure. Moving on now, we do want to talk about League One, obviously. Now, this has been quite the interesting league to me so far. In terms of table, we do have Swansea in first with 65, Spurs in second with 57, Liverpool tied for points in third with 57, Barcelona all the way in fourth, 10 points back with 47. Then we have Atalanta 46 and Marseille, that sixth spot with 44. Now, one thing I feel like we have to touch on. Obviously, we know Swansea's a team that's filled with good, experienced Super League players down in League One.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us kind of expected them to win League One. A shock, though, for sure, is Spurs. Now, their whole situation is kind of funny. I'm just going to give my point of view. Obviously, touch me up if I'm wrong. This team had management from an FMVP team, and they came into this. They were in second, but the manager was not putting in stats. He was using the illegal host. I think a few more things. He gets kicked out. AO Peru comes in to take over the team, and they keep going. They keep winning. In their last 16 games, they have 12 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw in all competitions. I mean, I don't think any of us expected after them having a fallout for the team to come back, be picked up, and still be putting in form.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. I think it speaks to the players. It speaks to the manager. And, yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily want to comment too much on the previous manager because there were some things that need to be done as a manager in this league. You have to be able to do stats and either way, speaking on the positive side of things, it's good to see the Spurs, Tottenham Hotspur, the Spurs, doing well. I think they are a team that we have a lot of people in the league who are fans of theirs, and not the thing, but the club, not the PCN.
Yeah.
And then so that team, I think, wants to be in Super League. So hopefully they're able to keep that up and get there.
Yeah, definitely going to be watching them to see how they do. A team that also should be contending for a Super League spot, is Liverpool.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're tied for second with 57. And a few things have happened with this team that kind of been a little shocked. So, Death Row retired mid-season, I think a couple of weeks back. He just didn't want to play FIFA anymore. I don't know the specifics. He was their top goal scorer.
Yeah, I would like to know more about that, by the way. I would like to know more. So if somebody has any information as to what happened, I mean, I guess I could reach out to him, but I didn't know this was a thing. So I'm intrigued that he just retired. I didn't see it.
It was just kind of abrupt. I mean, no one was expecting it. He was their top goal scorer, and people saw he wasn't playing for 5 games, and then he came out in the general and he said he just was retiring. So
weird. Yeah,
it was kind of a shock, but I don't think Hoops wasted any time losing his best striker, picking up Soccer FJ, the guy's a good player. He's a really good player, but in League One, he's just a different animal. I mean, he always kills it in the league. And they also picked up Austin from Orlando at DM. So do you think this team could contend for first? I mean, they're only a couple points off, but do you think at this point they could get a good run of form and hope Swansea loses and get up there?
No, I think Swansea's pulling that out. I mean, if you look at the schedule, I just don't think that's. You're talking about making up 8 points. Yeah, the Spurs have a game in hand, but even then, you're talking 60. That's 5 points. Yeah, it's something that you could do, but for a team that's only lost 3 games, drawn 5 in a league that they arguably shouldn't be in, I just don't think it's happening.
That's fair, but like we said earlier, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, 5 points. Here I am arguing that same 5 points, but potentially 5 points. It's unstated, but and for Real Madrid, I'm thinking, God, that's so close. Maybe it's because of me being the manager and having dealt with Orlando in the past and knowing how good they are. Orlando's not letting up. I don't know about Spurs. Maybe Liverpool doesn't let up either, but they've lost 7 games. So I don't know what to take from that. I mean, it would you'd have to see a pretty serious collapse, I think, from Swansea in order to not win the title. But good for them for having three teams,
I mean, yeah, it's good to see, the title races in each league kind of being up there and close. It's good for the league. I think it's gotten a lot better versus one team running away with it. So
yeah, I mean,
definitely something nice to see.
Let's look at Swansea's schedule, the remaining schedule for them. Right, they've got Miami, a good side, sure. Valencia, Napoli, Atalanta, Newcastle, Sporting, Pumas, Barcelona, Chelsea, and Sevilla. So of those teams, I,
3 teams maybe that could
yeah, I mean,
challenge them.
like maybe 3 or 4 games where you're not getting the result. Granted, in the last game they played Marseille and they drew that. So who knows? It. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, you really don't know. Um, Speaking of a team you just talked about, Atalanta. Now these guys, I feel like they have a pretty weird story. So Exotic Tiger is their manager.
Hmm.
They were former Royal Cup champions, I think 3 seasons back, maybe four.
It was
Correct
three.
me
It
if
was
I'm
three.
wrong.
So they won, and then Real Madrid won back to back.
No, oh, back to back. Oh, look at that. They lost 3 key players coming into the season. It was Young, YRG, Broken Xbox, and Gabby X163, who also, by the way, went to Dortmund in League Two. They were all season 15 League One tops.
Hmm.
They finished third last season, and now they're sitting in fifth. Um, I know we had a chit chat earlier about this.
Hmm.
In my view, I feel like they're struggling, uh, being in this spot, losing their key players. Though, what's your take on this?
Yeah. So my take is pretty simple. I think when you lose those caliber of players, it's difficult to rebuild, especially within the season. I think that's really difficult. And you could tell based on the results they've had that they're used to a certain amount of goals being for them, right? So like in a game where you would score normally 3, now they're only scoring 1 or 2 at most, right? And so that is, I think, why they have 10 draws on the season. I think that's the big factor there, is that they're accustomed to allowing certain amount of goals in, and they got accustomed to scoring so many goals, and so that I don't know, that equation is no longer in balance for them, and so they are now trying to figure out how to score more goals and make that make sense. I think they've done an incredible job. I think Exotic Tiger has done an incredible job keeping that team somewhat successful. I mean, top 5 is still get you in the hunt, so no complaints. It's not a team that's just rolled over and taken it, because like my team, I would say season 13. Again, I don't want to keep making this about me, but my experience obviously is based on my experience. And so when I lost, 6 players who were team of the season caliber on season 12, it was tough. We ended up, I think, finishing that season in 13 or 12. Like, it was bad. But, Exotic Tiger's not doing that. He's turning it around and putting himself and the team still in 5th place. I think that's an incredible feat given the people he lost.
Yeah, I mean, putting it in that perspective too, I mean, he probably expected himself to do a little bit better, but considering where they're at now, like you said, with losing key players, and we didn't even mention Soccer FJ too, who is there with them, contributing to their goals.
Well, yeah,
So I see them
he's the
up
guy that I
here.
was talking about mostly. I mean, they lost him in the offseason, so I don't think that counts, but he was giving them a lot of goals, and then they lost Young Rai G, Broken Xbox, as you mentioned, and Gabby. So, I mean, those are 4 big players for them in League One. So, I don't know any other manager in the league, I think, that would be able to lose 4 Tots caliber players and then still be able to get top 5. I think that's something that you and I should look at and revere as some kind of accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to him for sure for doing that. We can only see how close they can finish in that table, maybe push for a top 3 spot, top 4 for sure.
Mhm.
A little interesting team that I saw that I got kind of it hit me in the head when I saw Atletico sitting in 13th.
Mhm.
This team was in 5th place last season.
Mhm.
Now they're in 13th. I feel like one of their main issues is that they're tied for the 3rd lowest goal scoring team in League One with only 27.
Mhm.
And their top goal scorer only has 8 goals. A little side fact, by the way, their keeper is tied for the team's top assist with 2,
Oh,
DCF Buffon, which, that's it's a little sad that your keeper's top tied for assists, but I mean,
well, I think there's your
hey,
answer, right? Like, obviously they're not scoring enough goals, but if only 2 of your goals were created with the team, that's a huge problem. That is a huge problem, one that has to be addressed. That means that you're not finding players who are able to create anything for others. Now, I don't know. I haven't watched them this season, but and I know. Obviously, their manager is an admin, but it's not a thing that I would look at and say he's doing a bad job. Because I don't think that's the case. I think Oswald and I think Dorsey's even on the team. They have good players. Lego's on the team, but to me, Oswald, I think, is going to have to make some changes there. And maybe they lost their striker. I think they did lose.
Was it Elements of God?
Yeah, Elements of God. Yeah, Elements of God.
Yeah.
They lost him for sure. He's not there anymore. So he left mid-season, didn't he? I think.
Yeah, he went to Sociedad and then.
Yeah. So
I mean,
you lose that, and not to say that he was a big loss for them in the long term, but in the short term, when you're talking about goal production, and he was, able to maybe create things without need of help. Now they don't have that, so they need to find somebody who's a goal scorer, just like everybody else. But I think to me, that's more about creating the space to find the finish.
Yeah. They lost Elements a few seasons back. Chili Willy was there. He left to go to Ajax.
Mm-hmm.
He was a team of season winning cam for them, so I think that was a big loss too. But we played against them in the cup, and they weren't playing bad by any means. They possessed well, they defended well. It was just a matter of them scoring, which they just could not do. Granted, it was against one of the better defenses in Super League, but still gotta expect them to put up some chances, which I just don't think they did enough of.
Yeah, I think that's it, right? You have to be able to create. You have to be able to do things with the ball, without the ball. And if you're not able to get into some kind of cohesive movement or cohesive approach in the final third, you're not going to be able to break down teams, and you're not going to score goals. So
yeah, for sure. And it sucks if you're dependent on like one or two people. Not saying that they are, but like just seeing how like you lose a guy like Willie, who was their probably source for playmaking.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really have a guy like that to back up. I mean, there's only so much that team could do without that key player to go through,
Mm-hmm.
But we will now move on to League Two, and another league whose title race is super close, which again, like we said, is super nice to see. We have Everton in first with 62, Bayern in second with 59, Dortmund in third with 56, Lyon in fourth with 49, Aston Villa in fifth with 46, and Palace sitting in top six with 44. Now, one thing to talk about for sure, which I don't think anyone expected in this league, I think everyone thought Dortmund and Bayern would take this for sure, is Everton.
Mm-hmm.
They're first. They have a 17 undefeated streak in League Two right now, 16 wins and 1 draw.
Wow.
And there's not like that's just kudos to the manager for that. And they also got the top goal scorer on their team, James Westphal. 28 games, he has 27 goals and 10 assists. Now people bash League Two and they say it's a league that you go down there for fun with your friends. But I mean, you look at this table now, you see what people have done in the past, go down with a bunch of their friends, a bunch of good Super League caliber players who come in there and kill the league. And I feel like a few, not Dortmund and Bayern, but they have players who have been around the league who are good. I will say that. Both of them do. BVB is a team that's full of friends, but they have a bunch of players who are good. Gabby, Broken, YG. Yeah. And to see now that they're contending for the title for sure, but to see that they're not even first right now, I mean, just kudos to the Everton manager. I mean, that's just great to see.
Yeah, I mean, to me, League Two is about the goals against, especially that race. I mean, you look at Everton, that is an incredible streak. I mean, for them, for sure. But they have 26 goals conceded on the season. I mean, in League Two, you would think a team of superstars or whatever. Not that they are, but I'm just saying if you're sending back Super League caliber players down to League Two, you're not conceding 30 goals. Like right now, Bayern's only conceded 24. Which still is only 2 fewer, but to me, that's too many. It's too many. And they've only lost 3 games. So they're doing something right. But they have 8 draws. So, yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's just finding a way to win, finding a way to score goals. I don't know. But definitely kudos to them for pulling off something I don't think anyone expected. I mean, that's just a great accomplishment. Bayern, they were coming into this season, they were still a favorite. Everyone was talking about them. I think in the predictions, they even had them in first.
Hmm.
They added Winnie to their roster alongside after Celtic folding. And we all know Winnie. Winnie's been a top caliber player in this league since who knows how long.
Hmm.
Do you think with him and Rick together back again, they were together at Celtic, and I'm pretty sure they won the PCN Cup, and they won League One. You think those two back together will be enough to get Bayern a title?
Possibly. I mean, Winnie's an incredible player. I think he has the ability alone to create something special. You talk about Atletico Madrid with League One. Atletico Madrid getting Winnie would be the ideal situation. He's a guy who can break teams down, one on one, and then find the pass. But I think for Bayern, to me, is that enough? He and Rick, it should be. It damn well should be. I mean, if you're taking two guys who have historically been good, and you take a guy who is a Tots caliber assist man, what do you have, 22 or something 2 seasons ago? It's not like he's washed. So you take this guy who had 20 plus assists in a season, and you put him in League Two. I damn well expect them to win. I mean, that to me, that's anything less is a failure.
I mean, yeah, for sure.
The fact that Everton has been on this unbeaten run, like that's I think the only reason why they're not at first. But at the same time, like it's crazy. How long can Everton keep that up? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean they've done it up to the mid-season and a little bit after so far. So
10
like,
games left.
I don't think that they're gonna stop. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I can't wait to record the next one. A week from now.
And next thing you know, like Dortmund's ahead and Everton shoots down to like sixth place.
Exactly. Who knows, man?
It could happen. I mean, that's the thing. That's what I love about this league. Like you can't. We used to always think you count it out, but with all the stuff that's happened now, like you don't know. Like you expect things from people, but like you don't really know. So you just kind of have to wait and see what'll happen.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had Fuddy for the last two Wednesdays. It's shitty, but we haven't had him. He hasn't been available with real life stuff. So. That could have changed our season completely. I'm sure other teams have similar situations where they don't have, their best player on a certain game day or whatever, and it helps in their struggles.
Yeah, I mean, but finding a way to pull results out is also a major thing, which you guys have found the answer to do so. Maybe other teams haven't been so lucky with that. Another team that hasn't been really lucky is DC United. This is just one of the last things I want to touch up on in League Two. This team finished top 6 last season. They were predicted, I'm pretty sure they were to be top 4 or get promoted to League One.
Mm-hmm.
And they're sitting in 19th now, which is just, I mean, some might say unlucky. I don't think that should be, that just shouldn't happen. You shouldn't finish high, don't lose any players, and then have that happen. And,
well, I mean, they've defaulted their last 4, though. I mean...
Yeah, which I don't know what's been up with that. I don't know if there's something up with management.
I honestly don't know either. I'm gonna have to find out because that's terrible. Can't be defaulted.
But excluding that fact, I mean, they've conceded 45, which is second most in League Two. And I know the manager. It's Red Dead, the first guy I played clubs with that introduced me into competitive. So I played with him, and I know how he runs a team. It's not bad by any means. So to see them where they're at now is just kind of like. Well, heartbreaking. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. I mean, I only hope that they can just, take this season on the chin, come back next season, and just, revamp it and rebuild it.
Yeah.
Now, there's one cat in the hat that we must talk about. I feel like this has to be addressed.
One 10,000-pound gorilla, cat in the hat. That's funny.
Yeah. And this initially, what the incident is, it's the Benfica versus Milan incident. I'm pretty sure everyone in the league knows this. The glitch that's been going around. Long story short, what kind of
hold on. Before we get crazy, let's set the stage on what happened, because it wasn't a glitch. It's not a glitch. It's a server issue, right? Or what we believe to be a server issue, because we're not.
What people called it a glitch at the time, but
Yeah, I just don't. I think a glitch lends to using those posts by Dorsey about those glitches that we had in the game. So if you use the term glitch, it lends credence to those being used, and those weren't made for that. So continue.
which is what, happens with that. But anyway, Benfica at the time, a win against Milan will put them 4 points behind Madrid, and it will put them in second ahead of Orlando, which would be big in the title race. We're winning 1-0, and the 55th minute hits, and 7 of us just get wiped right away, just like that. And 3 Milan players did as well. We kind of didn't know what to do at the time. Benfica ended up losing 2-1. A lot of our players wanted to restart a replay of the game. The Milan players were just, teasing and trolling, saying, unlucky, that sucks for you guys. In the end, the decision remained a win for Milan after the review, and the, in quotes, glitch. I know we don't want to call it that. I don't have another word, so I'm just saying that it's not a glitch.
No, it's an issue. It is certainly an issue that has happened. It's whatever it is. For all I know, it could be the guy at EA unplugging the toaster. I have no idea. And that's what makes it difficult for us. And if we can get into this, I think that's fine. I totally understand the situation, and I know why. Teams and players are upset. I totally get it. This isn't a thing where I'm sitting here thinking, that the team should be happy about the outcome. I mean, the ruling was essentially to not rule on a replay or to not make a decision based on the game, right? That was the outcome. The outcome is that the game dictated the outcome. That is what it was. And because the game was still able to be played, and that's the issue. So from my perspective, I don't want to talk about any other admin's perspective. I don't want to talk about what the decision was or what the votes were by whoever, because I don't want to give any, any of that stuff is not mine to share, right? That's the staff. We all communicate, and so for me, from my perspective, right, the minute it happened, I felt like shit. Right, because immediately your team, and obviously they lost a couple guys as well, and it seems on the surface unfair, right, unjust that we would allow the game to continue to be played. And I totally get the perspective or the feeling, the emotional response of this is unfair. However, unfair equates to somebody taking an advantage of a situation, right? Or an advantage on purpose, right? Fair does not mean that you guys have the exact same opportunity after everything has been set up, right? Because that's not how it goes. You guys had an equitable approach to the game. Both teams, Milan and Benfica, both went in with the requisite amount of players and with the appropriate any slot filled, and we're ready to go. However, the game and or potentially the server, we're not 100% sure, because obviously there's no way for us to say that the glitch itself connected or disconnected several people, or the server kicked off people who were on the Dallas data center. I don't know enough about it to say that which thing actually took place. But what I do know is the game continued. So the FIFA continued the match. The match did not cancel out. So if the match is being played, there are only two options. One, I guess three if you want, so it's not a false dichotomy. There are three options. One, you can quit out, which would render your team at a default, because it would have been the 55th minute. You can't back out after that, right? That's it. You guys, if you back out, then it's a 3-0 win. Well, I guess technically it's a home walkover type thing. Anyway, the point is, if you back out, you lose for sure. The secondary option, or of the three, right? We said there are three choices. You can back out there, take a loss. You can stay in with your any, right? And finish out the game and try your best to win that game. I know it sucks. Believe me. But you can either try to win the game, or you can navigate that opportunity with another manager and try to get to restart the second half with all of your players, because that seems reasonable, right? We lost 7. They lost 3. That makes sense for you to be able to say, I want to restart, right? But in any situation like this, you have to have two parties who are willing to do that, right? Granted, they had an advantage at that point, right? Much like if you lost 4 players with a red card, they would have a market advantage. It makes sense. Now, that's not an advantage we granted as a league. That's not an advantage that Milan asked for. It's not something they did. All that happened was the match and the game continued with fewer players. The way that I see it, and this might get a little bit in the weeds, and I don't want to get too crazy here, is similar to like a musical or something, right? So like if you have somebody drop out on the day of, like let's say they go halfway through and then they get sick, food poisoning, whatever, they have an understudy who's there to fill in, right? Think of the understudy as Chuck on any, right? It's not the player that you want there. It's not Cage Technique, Cage x19 out on the outside, but there is a player there. Right? It's a shell of a player. It's difficult to liken this to real life because you're looking at football versus this video game rendition of it. And in the video game, you still had the shells of the players. And yes, like I said, that is shitty. Nobody wants that to happen, ever. That should never have to happen. But you can't look at that scenario and say, and then finish the game. You finish the game. So that's what the outcome was, is that the game was finished with 2 Ennies going against each other, and it sucks. It's not what we want from our competition, but that's what the match dictated. We didn't get in there and say, well, because you lost this, you have to do this. That's not a thing. So any argument that goes against that is hinged on 2 things. One, it's a we don't want to grant the replay because of some kind of bias. Right, I've heard that argument against me. There's a bias against Benfica. For starters, I actually really like the guys on Benfica. There's you, there's Perps, there's Chuck, there's Fayette, there's Kay. All of you guys I am cool with. I really like all of you players. I would not do anything to disrupt that. I don't care about the fact that you guys are in 3rd and we're going to be able to overtake Orlando. That didn't factor into the decision at all for me. The fact is, the hinge of the argument, the crux of the argument is that I have an inherent bias because I am on a Super League team that is ahead of you or whatever. And normally I would say, yeah, you're right. If I'm just some random manager, some random manager in the league, I would definitely want to see you guys fail. And that might sway my vote. But in this case, it just so happens that I'm also an owner of this league who wants the competition to be the best competition on the planet. And the argument of he has a bias is so myopic related to looking at this table for this season that I'm not even super concerned about this season. Yes, I want to win the title. Absolutely. Because I'm a manager in the league as well. But the long-term success of this organization is way more important to me than me winning this title. Way more important.
Than winning one season. Yeah, for sure.
Right. Now, if I lost the title, I'd be pissed. I'd be upset because I have stake in this, right? I'm still a manager. I get their perspective. But to think that it hinges on me having a bias, that I would somehow vote against you guys. If you reversed Milan with Benfica, the vote is still the same. Not because they're in 6th, or because they're in 3rd, like you are. It's because I don't care what team it was. I don't care. I don't care if it's Juve. We do not rule on anything that the match dictates unless the outcome is a default. So, for instance, we've been bringing up this crisis throw-in thing, and crisis, if you're listening, my God, please drop it. He had a player against him throw the ball, right, on a long throw at the goal. His goalkeeper, right, is in the net. The defender is 6 foot tall, whatever, and the defender backs up slowly to get the lock on because he's locked on, and the goalkeeper initiates the contact. They hit each other going for the same ball. That's called an aerial challenge. And the ball goes in without being touched by anybody, which in FIFA law, real law, right? That is an ineligible goal because the ball never came out of touch, right? So it never established itself on the field of play. It cannot actively go into the goal. That's you would then have to either retake that or it'd be a drop ball, right? So for me, that's how that would play out. But in FIFA, the video game, you can actually throw the ball into the net, as it turns out. We did about 85 tests of this very thing. And, when you see that happen, it sucks. Like, I don't like that. I hate it. I hate when these stupid freaking things happen that make us have to make a choice about something that can piss people off.
But you can't call people cheaters off that, though. Like he was going around.
Well, he still is
accusing people
today in the League 2 chat.
Now?
Yeah, right now, actively.
I mean, at that point, man, it's been so long that listen, you have all these other. I understand it sucks. Obviously, losing a game off a throw-in like that, you get pissed off. But just being real, you can't. There's no way to cheat in this game.
Yeah.
There are some mechanics that are busted that some people might abuse,
yeah.
but there's no possible way to cheat. Stuff like that happens. You just gotta deal with it and move on. It happens to everyone, bro.
And we don't do VAR, man. But we're not VAR.
Stuff like that happens. Yeah, I know. You can't expect the league to go back, review it, and be like, "Oh, all right, that goal won't count. You guys have to restart from this scoreline. Go ahead." No, man. You just have to accept that. People will fall in the box without being touched. Penalty.
Yeah, exactly.
No
we can't go back and say, "Well, that penalty didn't happen. Sorry, that penalty didn't occur." That we can't do that. So, to get back to the Benfica situation, right? The other part of that argument is that we had a glitch in our rule book, right? And on the rules section of the website, we have a glitch guideline that is, if this glitch occurs in FIFA 20, right? Because we hadn't really tested it for FIFA 21. If it occurs in FIFA 20, these are the potential outcomes that we could apply. Could turn into a rule.
You guys had it set to specific glitches that happened.
Yeah, and there were very specific glitches because this is not an all-encompassing thing. It's not an all-encompassing guideline. What we did say was managers can agree to restart the game if it's before first half and at the 1-0 goal, right? We can keep a goal in place, right? We can say that goal happened. We can't take away goals. We're not taking away goals here. We've never done that, and we're not going to. I'm never going to say that if a player scores in the field of play, I'm never going to remove a goal from that player. Because the game gave it to him. The game applied it. Now, what we could do is apply that to a different player if you can provide evidence that it did not get scored by this player, but did get scored by the other player. That is not outcome in affecting ruling, right? That's not an outcome effect. That is simply the effect of who gets credit for the outcome, right? Yeah. And we rule on those all the time. I mean, I got this assist, I promise, check it out. And I submit those myself, so I don't know why I did it in that voice. But you look at those guidelines that were in the rule book, right? They were for very specific glitches. One of those glitches was, and I think it was number 2, was related to when all players are removed from the game, right? So this was happening in FIFA 20, where we would play 3/4 of a game, and the game would crash and kick everybody out. Yeah. So then what we had was, okay, if this occurs, then what we would need to have happen is either you start at the first, obviously start at the beginning, but at the beginning of the game, but you start it as if it is the second half, or if it is, the first half, or whatever, depending on when it kicked you out. All players start up, and the score line is what it was when it kicked out. That's it.
Yeah.
So you might get an additional 20 minutes or something, if that's the case, but
it's relatively the best you guys could do.
Yeah, I mean, and that was a glitch that if everyone is removed, if teams are removed, this does not apply to if a portion of your team is kicked from the game. Because if a portion of your team is kicked from the game and you want to restart that half, and the other manager is okay with restarting that half because you dropped 8 players or 7 players in your case, then that's fine. But that didn't happen, and I wouldn't expect Chuck or Fayette, while they're playing, to stop playing and then message. I would expect one of the people who dropped out to maybe message, but at the same time, I don't expect that, because the expectation is that the game is still played because the game is still being played. It's the match is still active. Does that suck? Yeah, I think that's fucking terrible. I think that's the worst. But we don't make rules based on the 1%. We never have, and we never will. And the reason for that is because it's really bad for business. Making rules and implementing changes to things based on 1% and 2% occurrences is really bad business. You learn that in like business 101, that's not a thing that you do. You don't. You go and make rules to the things that occur at a greater rate than that. And this is a very, very small sample. Now, granted, we have had it happen a couple of times. It happened to multiple teams that night. And you know what happened in every single case besides yours? The managers coordinated and restarted the half at the scoreline being the same. So why that didn't work for your team, I can only make assumptions because I don't know what exactly went down.
As much as it sucks, like, I'm just gonna give my little point of view. I was there and I got booted. I mean, we were all kind of like sitting there like, what just happened? And Chuck was kind of, I feel for the guy. He was kind of flustered at the time because 7 of his guys just got kicked out, and I'm pretty sure we conceded instantly after that. And I'd like to say I'm neutral in this case. I obviously would have liked the replay considering where we were in the table and how things went.
I would have liked the replay, Cage. I mean, I would have preferred that would have been the case, but I'm not going to force a manager to replay when they stayed. Yeah, they had more players.
Yeah,
sure.
They played it out.
It was played out.
You have to look at it from both sides. One, I mean, like you just said, this happened all around the league, and I know, Chuck obviously had to focus on controlling the guys, but this happened with Inter in Santa Clara. Sana was one of the guys who got kicked. He's the manager of Inter. The first thing he did was went and asked the Santa Clara manager, and I'm pretty sure that guy was in the game too, if they could restart. They played it till half, reset the game, and they went on. So I feel like, it partially was on us for not going in and having someone message Jigsaw right away. But you have to look at it from the side of the admins that they had to make a decision that would hurt and fuck over someone either way. But you guys can't make up a rule on the fly now, because making up a rule that would, because one, we don't know how consistent this glitch in quotes is. We don't know if it happens all the time. It's only happened one game day so far, from what we can tell.
Well, it happened. It happened. I don't want to lie about it. It did happen again last game day. It happened to one team. They lost 7 players as well. However, the other manager agreed to restart. So again, in all cases except for the Milan and Benfica case, everybody was willing to restart, and that's
still, I don't
ideal.
Feel like it's enough,
Yeah.
To
be honest,
can't make a rule off that.
I think the issue is more server related than anything. And if we're talking about 30 games out of 38 have this happen, or let's take it from a per game day basis, right? If we're talking about 2 games every game day, and there are only 10 games per league, right? So if 2 of those 8 have that happen, then we're gonna have something to do here. We're gonna have to talk about this as a glitch, a bona fide guideline implementation situation. We would write a whole different guideline for that specific situation. Now, we're not above that. I'm not saying that couldn't happen, because it could. But
to make a choice now is just premature, because you can't make a rule right away now, because that will probably end up worsening the league more than just waiting out, leaving things as it is, then in the off season coming back to check this out and then making a decision. I feel like that would be best for the league, because you're not screwing with everything in the middle of the season. The next thing you know, this was an argument. People could just say, "Oh, we're losing 2-0, guys, let's back out." So you got a glitch. Then you'd have to go into specifics for that, finding out rules so that stuff doesn't happen. So I think it's just best. As much as it sucks, I hate this, and I think everyone hates this, like getting kicked out in games that you need to win, to push for titles, etc. But at this point, I feel like the best we can do is just wait till the end of the season, and then just let the admins make it. I think that's just the only option we have.
Yeah, I mean, the argument is then what's the threshold of dropouts? And Fayette said that 5. If you're down 5 players, that you should be able to restart. And okay, I mean, but who's to say that at 4, you have 4 people drop out, that fifth person doesn't quit out, at the same time? Then we have to start looking into, did that player quit out purposefully? We got to review the tape. Are you guys all going to do that? No, it's going to be me and the staff. And frankly, I don't want to become the gatekeeper of the match level.
That's just unnecessary work.
Disconnections. I'm not in charge of your internet connection, certainly. I'm not in charge of their connection to you, the server level, and I'm certainly not in charge of the game. All I can do is put forth rules and implement things for our staff, and I'm speaking as me, but here it's like as an admin, as one of the heads of the organization, all we can do is put forth the best opportunity to be successful for the competition. Like I'm not looking at Benfica and saying, oh, because it's Benfica, I want to fuck them over. I think that's really shitty that people would think that I'm that way. I'm not going to sit here and take, people telling me that they think that because I have a bias that I'm looking to get somebody. I think it's a shitty take. It's a shitty take because it's myopic as hell. And you're not taking into account the fact that I care more deeply about this organization than I do Super League title, right? I just do. I want this league to be successful. And if I did what they are suggesting that I did, then that would be putting my needs of winning the title over the league's needs. And that's just not a thing I'm willing to do.
Yeah. Which is understandable. I think everyone should, and if they can't, then I don't know, man, but that's something that should be seen as clear cut. If people don't get that, then that just sucks for them.
I'm putting 30 hours in a week at this. Do you really think that I'm going to spend that kind of time and I barely manage the team right now. I barely manage a team because right now it's me, Goat, and Fut are doing the management, and I barely have time to manage because I am doing more with the league than I ever have because of, Dorsey was gone for several months and we just didn't have the staff. So we brought in more staff and now we had to train and now we're doing late night league. So I'm really, really spread thinly that believe me, I would not be doing all of this if I really felt like someday I'm going to just break all the rules to get Super League title under my, that cheapens the Super League title for me. That doesn't, that I want to win it winning against the best teams, given the best opportunity.
For sure.
Would I have preferred that there be a replay between Benfica and Milan? Yeah, 100%. I would have preferred that be the outcome, as it was the outcome for every single other opportunity here. But that didn't happen. Not through my fault, for sure. I can't force Milan because they scored goals. I was talking to the funny thing about this, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I was getting lambasted from both sides that it's unfair. And the bottom line is it's not unfair. What sucks is, and it's shitty that you lost so many players. That is so shitty. I fucking hate the game for that. That's shitty. But it's not unfair. It's not unjust. Nobody brought this about, right? AC Milan didn't do something to make it unfair.
Yeah.
Benfica didn't do something to make it unfair. It was the game did what it did. I mean, when I talk about this situation, I think about it as do you remember 3 or 4 seasons ago, maybe season 14, so maybe not that long ago, but Benfica had a game where they were playing Leverkusen, and in like the PCN
offside goal. Yep.
Yeah, and it was offside. And it was like 10 yards offside. I mean, it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close.
Stupid.
And to me, my heart broke there because like I wanted very much to take that goal away. I wanted very much to take that goal away. But the game counted it. The game counted it. And it pissed me off. And I was so mad. And I was sitting there trying to argue for getting that goal taken. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't argue for that because it doesn't make sense from a league perspective. No. So then what's crazier then in the next round, the very next fucking round, We played against Atalanta. Real Madrid did. I think we might have even been Chelsea at the time. I don't remember. But we played against them, Atalanta, and the same thing happened to us. The exact same situation. And people were saying that I would have changed it if the roles were reversed. They were reversed in this instance. This exact instance. And I did not reverse the goal. I got knocked out in the 90th minute because
of something like
because of that goal. It was, I think we were up 1, in like the 89th or something, and they scored in the 90th to take it to extra time and then held serve until penalties, and they won on pens. It pissed me off. Yes. It absolutely. Would it be easy of me as the owner of this league to just say, yeah, that goal doesn't count, we win 1-0? Would it have been easy for me to do that? Yeah, I could have. Absolutely. Did I? No, because it's not right. It's not the right thing to do. And the precedent had already been set a long time ago, not just the Benfica game, that we are not going to get involved in those moments because the match and the game have already dictated that. The outcome.
On your hands.
And it's shitty. Believe me, I was fucking pissed, but that's the outcome, and we move.
Yeah, I mean, that's all we can do. Like, there's nothing else. Like, the shit will now, at this point, shit like this will happen, and it's in the game, and as much as it sucks to play for everyone, to see happen to everyone, like, we just have to take it on the chin and move on till it becomes a legit issue that the admin team will have to address.
Yeah.
Till
it becomes that's how it has to be, right? It's got to be once the threshold reaches a certain point. And I don't know what that point is. I don't know what that point is. But it's not been a continuous issue. It's happened now 2 game days. So if it continues to happen, then sure, maybe we can meet about it and talk about it. But until then, 1 off, 2 off, even 4 off situations, those aren't going to be things that we sit here and go, yeah, we're definitely changing the entire things that we do just because of these. It's crazy. It's crazy. And that's not to invalidate the feelings, that the Benfica players are feeling, and Chuck, I'm sure. I haven't really spoken to Chuck. I know that he messaged. I have not responded to him, and that's not because I don't care, because I'm trying to find out the ways that I'm trying to feel out how long it will take, because I think it's still too raw for him. Maybe that's my own procrastination at play. I don't know, but for me, it's like I don't want to respond and have him be more upset at me about it, because frankly, it's not a thing that I feel great about. To be honest, I don't feel great about them having lost 7 players. I don't feel great about that, but I also. I can't change the ruling because I want to. That's just not how it works. So, I do hope that the guys that I am somewhat friends with, acquaintances with, can figure that shit out. But at this point, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think this will be taken too far into heart, man. I mean, it's just. Yeah, like you said, it's so raw. I think over time, in a couple of days, it'll be over, and we'll be over it. It just sucks at the time, but yeah, I mean, that was the whole incident, the beef for the Discord that we just felt like we had to address. It did cause the cast to last a little bit longer than we planned to, but again, this is just something we had to talk about, address, let everyone know where the owner stands about it, where the admin team stands about it, where a player on the team that happened to stands about it. That was pretty important for you guys. That being said, we do plan to wrap up the podcast now. Before I do go, I would like to shout out the PCN News channel. I believe that's Hino now who's taken over that. And I just want to say major props at him, because it's just additional content that he didn't need to do, but he wanted to do for the community. And my God, it's awesome. I got to say, reading that is interesting. Normally stuff like that you don't find interesting, but what he's doing in the graphics he made too for the transfers, I think he did that as well. I mean, the guy is just on a rampage for producing content. So kudos to him. Make sure you guys check that out before every game day, before every marquee. I mean, it's great to see it.
Yeah, I mean, it started out as a thing that he wanted to do for the transfers, and we've talked about a long-term strategy here surrounding that and a few other things. And honestly, he's been a great addition to staff to have around, and he and Untitled have been putting together these cool little news stories. I don't love that I'm focal centric here. Like I don't I don't know. I don't feel great about that because I think there's so many cool things going on in the league. But obviously, my team is playing, a juggernaut in Orlando, and so it makes sense. I just, for me, it's like I don't need the pub. I don't really want to be that guy that's just sitting here, people writing about all the time. But at the same time, like, it's cool that they're putting out the interview. The interview that he sent to me, it was just a bunch of questions. But the fact that he had the questions already ready and I didn't have to deal with any other information, was just, here are the questions, and they were different from the questions that he asked other people. Because, obviously I'm seeing them because I have a different perspective. And
for the first time.
So having seen new questions like that song, I hadn't really been able to think about that because it wasn't a question I would ask myself, right? Like, what song would you define, your team as? And if anybody cares to know why I picked that team, I mean, obviously I put the words there, but like, that song is so smooth and so good. If you haven't listened to it, please do. It's called Jazz by Tribe Called Quest. But dude, those kinds of questions are just, to me, it's clever and it's fun, and hopefully they're able to keep bringing you guys some really cool content.
Yeah, man. I mean, I hope he continues to do so for the long run. I think it's super nice to see that being a new thing brought up and the podcast being revived. All this being considered and said, I do think it's time to wrap this up. If you guys do, again, we know it took a little longer this time. We don't plan for it to be this long. Again, just had to make sure you guys knew the situation about the whole glitch in Quota. If you guys have any suggestions of what we could do better, worse, please DM me. Maybe eKsiSLe. I don't know if you'd like that.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I get DMs every day, all day, man. So it's fine.
Yeah, because we want to make this as best as we can for you guys. We want this to go as long as it possibly can. And yeah, besides that, I mean, I don't have really anything else to close the cast off. Do you have anything to say?
No, I mean, I feel like I spoke a lot here, but if anybody has any questions or does want to talk about any of the things that we spoke about tonight, I'm always available and happy to talk about it. And I probably will end up messaging Chuck and chatting with the folks as well, because I think that chapter needs to be finished
and closed. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you guys taking a listen. This was episode 1 of the podcast, and we'll catch you guys later.
See you.